The first bullet shattered the bakery window at 6:14 inches the morning. Hannah Mercer had just placed a tray of orange cardamom rolls beneath the glass display when the front window exploded inward, scattering glittering fragments across the black and white tile. For half a second, she did not understand what had happened. The warm bakery still smelled of butter, sugar, and roasted coffee. Christmas lights glowed around the window frame. Snow pressed softly against the dark Boston street beyond the glass. Then, the second bullet tore through the brass menu board above her head. Hannah dropped behind the counter. A scream caught in her throat. Outside, two men in dark coats moved through the blowing snow toward the entrance. Their faces were hidden. One carried a handgun, the other held something metal beneath his coat. Across the street, the black Rolls-Royce was already there. It had been there every morning for 2 years, always parked beneath the same bare elm tree, always facing her bakery, always arriving before sunrise. The man inside had never stepped onto the sidewalk. He had never spoken to Hannah. He had never even lowered the tinted rear window. Every morning, one of his bodyguards entered the bakery at exactly 6:30, purchased every pastry in the display case, left a tip large enough to cover Hannah's rent, and carried the boxes back to the car. Hannah had invented 100 explanations for him: a lonely billionaire, an eccentric widower, a hotel owner feeding his staff, a criminal. She had dismissed the last possibility because criminals did not buy lemon tarts with handwritten thank you cards tucked beneath the ribbon. The bakery door burst open. The bell above it rang once, bright and absurd. Hannah crawled backward, her palms cutting against broken glass. The first attacker stepped inside. "Where is it?" His voice was low and impatient. Hannah stared at him from behind the counter. "Where is what?" He crossed the room in 3 strides, seized her apron, and dragged her upright. Pain shot through her knees. "The key your mother left you. My mother is dead." "We know." The answer emptied the air from her lung. The man lifted his gun. Across the street, the rear door of the Rolls-Royce opened. A tall man stepped into the snow. Hannah saw him clearly for the first time. Black overcoat, black gloves, dark hair swept back from a severe, beautiful face. He moved without urgency, but the street seemed to change around him. Men emerged from 2 parked sedans Hannah had never noticed. Another SUV cut sideways through the intersection, blocking traffic. The attacker holding Hannah turned toward the window. His face changed. Not confusion, recognition, fear. Moretti. The name was barely a whisper. Then the lights went out. Gunfire cracked through the bakery. Hannah felt a powerful arm close around her waist and pull her down. Her shoulder hit a hard chest. The scent of cold air, cedar, and gunpowder filled her lungs. A man's body covered hers as glass fell around them. "Keep your eyes closed," a calm voice said beside her ear. She recognized the voice, though she had never heard it before. It belonged to the man from the Rolls-Royce. Hannah opened her eyes anyway. He was crouched over her, one gloved hand protecting the back of her head. His face was inches from hers. Dark brown eyes held hers with a concentration so intense it felt almost intimate. Blood marked one side of his collar. Not his blood, she thought. The attacker near the door raised his weapon. The stranger fired once. The attacker collapsed behind the overturned pastry table. Silence followed, not peace. The stunned, ringing silence that comes after violence has removed every ordinary sound from a room. The man looked down at Hannah. "Are you hurt?" She stared at him. "You killed him. He was going to kill you. You killed him in my bakery." His jaw tightened. "Are you hurt?" Hannah looked at her bleeding palms. "I don't know." His gaze dropped to her hands. Something cold and controlled shifted behind his eyes. He removed one glove and wrapped his bare hand around her wrist, careful not to touch the glass embedded in her skin. "Hannah." She went still. She had never told him her name. He looked toward the street. "Take her to the car." 2 men entered through the broken doorway. Hannah pulled away. "No." The stranger turned back to her. "You cannot stay here. This is my bakery. It is now a crime scene. It is my home. Your apartment is above it." They already know that. The words landed harder than the gunshots. Hannah stared at him through the drifting smoke. Who are you? He stood, unfolding to his full height. Luca Moretti. She knew the name. Everyone in Boston knew it. The newspapers called him a businessman. Federal investigators called him a person of interest. Men in the North End lowered their voices when they spoke about him. Rumors placed him behind private clubs, shipping companies, luxury hotels, political campaigns, and bodies that had never been found. Boston's most feared mafia boss had been sitting outside her bakery every morning for 2 years. Luca extended his uninjured hand. We need to leave. Hannah looked at the shattered display case, the ruined pastries, and the blood spreading across the tile beneath the body near the door. Then she looked at Luca. You knew this would happen. His expression remained still. I knew it was possible. And you said nothing. If I had told you, you would have run. You don't know me. His eyes moved over her face with quiet certainty. I know you better than you think. Hannah slapped him. The sound cracked through the bakery. Every armed man in the room froze. Luca's head turned slightly with the impact. For the first time, his calm expression fractured. Not with anger, with something darker and more complicated. He slowly looked back at her. Hannah's hand trembled at her side. You do not know me, she repeated. Luca studied her for a long moment. Then he bent, picked up his glove, and pulled it back over his hand. You are right, he said. But if you remain here, you will not live long enough for me to prove it. Outside, sirens began to rise in the distance. Luca held out his hand again. This time, Hannah took it, not because she trusted him, because the men who had attacked her knew her mother, and because every question in her life had just become more dangerous than the man waiting to answer them. The Rolls-Royce smelled like leather and winter rain. Hannah sat against the far door with a wool blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Luca occupied the seat opposite her, one hand resting on his knee while the city blurred beyond the tinted windows. The bakery disappeared behind a wall of black SUVs. Snow covered the bodies before the police arrived. Hannah pressed a folded cloth against her bleeding palm. Luca reached toward her. She pulled her hand away. I can do it. You have glass beneath the skin. I said I can do it. His hands stopped in the space between them. For one suspended moment, Hannah thought he might ignore her. He was the kind of man who looked accustomed to obedience. His presence filled the car without movement or volume. Even silence seemed to belong to him. Then he withdrew his hand. A physician is waiting. Where are you taking me? My home. No. It is secure. I don't care. You should. I am not going to some mafia mansion because you decided my life belongs to you. His gaze sharpened. I have never believed your life belonged to me. You watched me for 2 years. I protected you. You sat across from my bakery every morning like a ghost, because that was when you were most vulnerable. Hannah stared at him. At 6 in the morning, you arrived alone at 4:30. You opened the back door without checking the alley. You left flour deliveries outside for 12 minutes while you prepared the ovens. You took the trash out at 6 to 10. The street remained empty until 6:20. A chill moved through her that had nothing to do with the snow. You memorized my schedule. I memorized every way someone could reach you. That is not normal. No. His honesty unsettled her more than denial would have. The car turned onto a private road lined with iron fencing. Hannah looked down at the cloth around her palm. Why did they ask about my mother? Luca did not answer immediately. Her name was Evelyn Mercer. I know my mother's name. She was not who you believed she was. Hannah's throat tightened. She was a nurse. She worked as a financial analyst for Caruso Maritime before she became a nurse. That was before I was born. Yes. How do you know? Luca looked out the window. Because she worked for my father. The car passed through a set of black gates. Beyond them stood a mansion of grey stone and glass overlooking the frozen Charles River. It looked less like a home than a private museum built to intimidate the city. Hannah turned back to him. You knew her. I met her 3 times. You said she left you something. She left you something. What? I do not know. Hannah laughed once, without humor. You have watched me for 2 years because of an object you cannot identify? Because men have died looking for it. The car stopped. Luca opened his door, but Hannah remained seated. Why did you buy all my pastries? He looked back at her. The question seemed to surprise him. You could have watched from anywhere, she continued. You could have put a camera across the street. You probably did. Why send someone inside every morning? Why buy everything? A faint shadow crossed his face. Because you noticed when the pastry case stayed full. Hannah said nothing. He continued quietly. On mornings when business was slow, you stood behind the counter and looked at the door as though you were trying not to care. When the shelves emptied, you moved differently. You lifted your shoulders. You played music while you cleaned. The confession was too precise, too personal. Hannah tightened the blanket around herself. You watched me smile? No. His Hase held hers. I watched you try not to. Then he stepped out into the snow. The physician removed 6 pieces of glass from Hannah's palms. She sat in a private medical room larger than her entire apartment, while a silver-haired doctor cleaned the cuts and wrapped both hands in gauze. Luca stood near the window. He had removed his coat, revealing a black suit fitted perfectly to his broad frame. A thin line of blood darkened his white shirt near the ribs. Hannah noticed it before the doctor did. You're bleeding. Luca looked down as though the wound belonged to someone else. It is superficial. The physician frowned. Sit down. No? Luca. The warning in the doctor's voice made Hannah look between them. Luca ignored him. The physician finished bandaging Hannah and turned toward the door. Then bleed on your own furniture. When they were alone, Hannah stood. You were shot, grazed. Sit down. His brows lifted slightly. I thought my life did not belong to you. It doesn't. But I refuse to have the man who kidnapped me collapse before I get answers. I did not kidnap you. You put me in a car, surrounded by men with guns. You took my hand, under extreme emotional distress. The corner of his mouth almost moved. It was not a smile, but it was the first sign that one might exist. Luca sat on the edge of the examination table. Hannah opened a drawer and found gauze, antiseptic, and scissors. Her bandaged hands made the work awkward. You should not do this, he said. You should have listened to the doctor. She unbuttoned the lower part of his shirt. A shallow wound crossed his side. Blood had soaked the fabric, but the bullet had only cut through the skin. Hannah cleaned it carefully. Luca did not flinch. His gaze remained on her face. Why are you staring at me? You are angry. That is an observation, not an explanation. Most people are afraid when they stand this close to me. I am afraid. You do not act like it. Hannah pressed the antiseptic harder than necessary. His muscles tightened. I spent most of my life acting afraid, she said. It never stopped anyone from hurting me. The words escaped before she could stop them. Luca's expression changed. Who hurt you? She placed gauze over the wound. No one you need to kill. That was not my question. It is the only answer you're getting. He caught her wrist, not harshly. His fingers closed around her bandages with controlled care. Hannah, the way he said her name, felt dangerous. Not because of threat, because of attention. She looked at his hand around her wrist and then into his eyes. Let go. He did. Immediately. That frightened her more than if he had refused. A man entered without knocking. He was older than Luca, perhaps in his late 40s, with grey at his temples and a scar across his right eyebrow. The police have secured the bakery, he said. Caruso's men are dead. One survived, but will not speak. Hannah turned. Caruso? The man looked at Luca. Luca buttoned his shirt. Vincent Caruso. The man who funds half the hospitals in Boston? The same man. Hannah stared at him. Why would he attack a bakery? He did not attack a bakery, Luca said. He attacked you. The older man placed a sealed evidence bag on the counter. Inside was a brass key darkened with age. Hannah recognized it. That was in my apartment, under the floorboards, the man said. Her stomach tightened. My mother gave it to me before she died. Luca stood. What did she tell you? She said it opened something I would need when I was ready. Ready for what? She never explained. Luca looked at the key. For the first time since the attack, Hannah saw uncertainty in him. The older man glanced toward the door. We should move her before Caruso finds the property. This house has more security than the governor's residence, Hannah said. He has people inside the governor's residence, Luca replied. Hannah looked at him. What kind of world did my mother leave me in? Luca's answer was quiet, the same one she spent her life trying to escape. Hannah was given a bedroom on the second floor, overlooking the river. It had cream walls, velvet curtains, a marble fireplace, and no personal objects. The room felt prepared rather than lived in, as if the house had been waiting for a stranger. Her clothing arrived 2 hours later. Every dress, coat, sweater, and pair of shoes had been taken from her apartment and arranged in the wardrobe. Hannah stood in the center of the room as a housekeeper placed her mother's wooden recipe box on the bedside table. I did not authorize anyone to enter my home, Hannah said. The housekeeper lowered her eyes. Mr. Moretti ordered your belongings collected before the police sealed the building. Of course he had. Hannah opened the recipe box. Inside were handwritten cards stained with sugar and butter. Her mother's handwriting filled each one. Apple cake, honey bread, chocolate rye cookies. The recipes were the only things Hannah had left of her. She touched the brass key in her pocket. Her mother had died from cancer 3 years earlier. During her final months, Evelyn had lost weight, then strength, then patience with anyone who tried to pretend she was not dying. She had refused to discuss her former life. Whenever Hannah asked about the key, Evelyn always gave the same answer. When the right man is willing to lose everything for you, ask him what he is still hiding. At the time, Hannah assumed the medication had made her confused. Now she wondered whether her mother had known Luca would come. A knock sounded. Luca entered before she answered. Hannah looked at him. You should wait until someone gives permission. This is my house. This is my room. His chaza lingered on her, temporarily, then temporarily learn manners. I do ada. He closed the door behind him. In his hand was a white bakery box. Hannah recognized the gold ribbon. Her throat tightened. You went back? My men recovered what they could before the fire department arrived. He placed the box on the table. Inside lay one orange cardamom roll, crushed on one side but intact. Hannah stared at it. You saved a pastry. You made it. That is not a reason. It is to me. She looked at him. Luca stood beneath the soft light, his black suit immaculate except for the fresh bandage beneath his shirt. He seemed impossible inside the delicate room, a weapon someone had placed beside silk curtains. Did you eat them? She asked. What? The pastries you bought every morning. Yes. All of them? No. What happened to the rest? My men ate them. You bought out my bakery to feed bodyguards? I bought out your bakery so you would not close. The answer silenced her. Luca turned toward the window. When I began watching you, the bakery was losing money. Your landlord had raised the rent. You were 3 months behind on your equipment loan. Hannah's face heated. You looked through my finances. I needed to know whether anyone was pressuring you. So you decided to secretly keep my business alive. Yes, you made me believe customers loved my work. They did. Your employees are not customers. They complained whenever I ordered fewer almond croissants. Hannah almost smiled. The reaction came so unexpectedly that she turned away. Luca noticed. Of course he noticed. You nearly smiled, he said. Do not make a habit of analyzing my face. I have already made a habit of it. The words settled between them. Hannah looked back at him. Why did you sit there yourself? I could have sent someone. That is what I asked. Luca's gaze shifted to the pastry box. The first morning, I intended to stay 5 minutes. And then, you came outside to sweep the snow. Hannah waited. You were wearing a red coat, he continued. A delivery truck passed too close to the curb. You stepped backward without looking. I thought you were going to fall into the road. So you stayed because I am clumsy? I stayed because I did not like the feeling I had when I thought you might disappear. His voice remained calm. The confession did not. Hannah's heart began beating too quickly. You did not know me. No. Then what you felt was not real. Luca's eyes hardened. Do not tell me what was real. For the first time, she glimpsed the force beneath his restraint. The dangerous man everyone feared had surfaced and vanished in a single sentence. Hannah held his gaze. Then tell me what you are still hiding. Luca became perfectly still. Her mother's words echoed inside her. When the right man is willing to lose everything for you, ask him what he is still hiding. She removed the brass key from her pocket. Luca looked at it. My mother told me to ask that question. Something unreadable crossed his face. What did she know about you? He turned toward the door. Get dressed. Where are we going? To find out what the key opens. The key opened a safe deposit box beneath an abandoned church in South Boston. The church had been closed for 15 years, its stained glass windows boarded, and its stone steps buried beneath snow. Luca's men entered first. Hannah followed him through a side door into darkness, scented with old wood and candle wax. A private elevator descended beneath the church. The underground chamber had once been a wine cellar. Steel doors had replaced the wooden barrels. Luca entered a code. The final door opened onto a narrow room lined with black metal boxes. Hannah slid the brass key into box 17. Inside lay a flash drive, a photograph, and a sealed letter addressed to her. The photograph showed her mother at 27, standing beside a younger Luca. He could not have been older than 24. His face was leaner then, his eyes less guarded. Between them stood a man Hannah did not recognize. Luca's father. Hannah opened the letter. My dearest Hannah, if you are reading this, then Vincent Caruso has found you, and Luca Moretti has failed to keep the danger far enough away. Do not blame him too quickly. He has carried a promise that was never fair to ask of him. The drive contains evidence of a financial network used to purchase judges, transport women, and hide political corruption across New England. I stole the records from Caruso Maritime 28 years ago. Luca's father helped me escape, but the original files were incomplete. The final access key is not on this drive. It is hidden inside the first recipe I ever taught you. Trust no one who asks for the key, not even Luca. Hannah stopped reading. Luca watched her from across the room. What does it say? She folded the letter. That I should not trust you. A muscle moved in his jaw. Reasonable advice. She said the final access key is hidden in a recipe. Which recipe? I am not telling you. One of Luca's men shifted near the door. Luca did not look away from her. Leave us. The room emptied. Hannah held the flash drive against her chest. You knew about the evidence. I knew your mother had stolen records from Caruso. You knew she hid them. Yes. You knew I might have them. Yes. And you still pretended the pastries were about my business. They became about your business. When? Luca's expression tightened. That distinction stopped mattering to me. That is not an answer. You want a date? I want the truth. He stepped closer. The truth is that I began watching you because your mother asked me to. I continued because Caruso's people came within 2 blocks of your bakery 3 times in the first month. Hannah's fingers tightened around the letter. And after the threat disappeared? It never disappeared. After it became manageable. Lucas stopped in front of her. You want to know when duty changed? Yes. The morning you burned 6 trays of brioche. Hannah blinked. He continued. You sat on the kitchen floor after your assistant left. You believed no one could see you. You cried for 7 minutes. Then you stood, washed your face, and made everything again before opening. Hannah remembered that morning. The oven temperature had failed. She had lost nearly a week's profit. She had cried because the failure felt like proof of every cruel thing people had said about her. Too emotional, too ambitious, too heavy to be graceful, too ordinary to be chosen. She looked at Luca. You watched me cry. Yes. And that made you obsessed with me? No. His eyes moved slowly over her face. It made me understand you were not fragile. Silence filled the underground room. Hannah's voice softened, despite herself. Then what made you obsessed? Luca looked at her for so long that the air became difficult to breathe. You noticed the old man who slept in the alley behind your bakery. Mr. Ellis, you left soup for him every night. He was hungry. You gave him your mother's winter coat. He needed it. You never told anyone. That is called kindness. To men like me, kindness without witnesses looks like a form of madness. And you like that? No. His voice dropped. I needed it. The words were not romantic. They were worse. They carried the weight of dependence. Hannah stepped back. Luca did not follow. You do not know what you need, she said. That is possible. And watching someone is not the same as loving them. I did not say I loved you. The denial came too quickly. It hurt more than she expected. Hannah looked down at the letter. Good. She walked past him toward the door. Luca's hand closed around the metal frame beside her head, blocking the exit without touching her. Hannah stopped. His body was close behind hers, not pressed against her, close enough for warmth. Do not mistake restraint for indifference, he said. She turned her head slightly, then stopped speaking in riddles. His voice became almost a whisper. If I say exactly what I feel, you will be afraid of me. I'm already afraid of you. No. His breath moved near her hair. You are afraid of what I might do. Hannah turned to face him. What is the difference? Luca looked down at her. You are not yet afraid of how much I would give up to keep you. The elevator sounded above them. One of Luca's men shouted through the outer chamber. Movement upstairs. The lights went out. Luca pulled Hannah behind him. Gunfire erupted beyond the steel door. The moment between them disappeared beneath the sound of war. They escaped through a tunnel beneath the church. Luca's men moved around Hannah in a protective formation, while snow fell through broken streetlights above. A black SUV waited at the end of the alley. The first explosion lifted the vehicle off the ground. Heat struck Hannah's face. Luca threw her against the brick wall and covered her body with his own as burning metal scattered across the snow. For a second, she heard nothing but his breathing. Then he rose, drew his weapon, and fired toward the rooftop opposite the alley. His men returned fire. Hannah saw a figure fall behind a chimney. Luca grabbed her hand. Run. They crossed the alley into an old funeral home. Black SUVs flooded the street from both directions. Inside, Luca pushed Hannah behind a marble pillar. You stay with Marco. The older man with the scar appeared beside her. Where are you going? Hannah asked. To end this. No. Luca looked at her. The expression on his face belonged to the man from the rumors. Cold. Absolute. Built for violence. Hannah held the front of his coat. You cannot leave me in a building full of coffins while people are shooting outside. You will be protected. That is not the point. It is the only point that matters. To you. His gaze dropped to her hand on his chest. Hannah realized how close they were. She could feel his heartbeat beneath the wool. Steady. Too steady. What matters to me? She asked. Luca's eyes returned to hers. You live. That is not enough. It is for me. He gently removed her hand. Then he walked into the gunfire. Hannah watched through the shattered window as Luca crossed the snowy street alone. Men emerged from the black SUVs around him. He gave one quiet order. The street transformed. Caruso's attackers were forced out of their positions within minutes. Luca moved through the violence without hesitation, every gesture controlled. He did not look heroic. He looked terrifying. When the final attacker fell, Luca stood beneath a flickering street lamp with snow melting in his dark hair. He turned toward the funeral home, toward Hannah. Even across the distance, she felt the force of his gaze. A phone began ringing beside one of the dead men. Luca picked it up. His expression changed as he listened. Then, he looked directly at Hannah. Marco swore under his breath. What? He pressed a hand to the earpiece beneath his collar. Caruso has her assistant. Hannah's body went cold. Emily? Marco looked at her. They took her from her apartment 20 minutes ago. Luca entered the funeral home. His face was emotionless. That frightened Hannah more than rage would have. What does he want? She asked. The drive. He can have it. No. Emily is 24. She has a 6-year-old son. The Bruce too. I know. Then give him the drive. If Caruso receives those files, thousands of people remain under his control. I don't care about your war. This is not my war. He kidnapped someone because of me. He kidnapped someone because he believes compassion makes you predictable. Hannah stepped toward him. He is right. Luca's gaze darkened. No, I will not let her die to protect evidence. And I will not let you walk into Caruso's hands. You do not get to choose. I already have. Hannah slapped him again. This time, Luca caught her wrist before her hand left his cheek. Every man in the room looked away. Luca's fingers tightened, not enough to hurt, enough to show that his restraint was no longer effortless. You may hate me, he said quietly. You may leave me when this is over. You may burn every photograph, every file, every building with my name on it. But you will not offer yourself to Vincent Caruso. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. You cannot imprison me and call it protection. I can, if the alternative is your funeral. That is not love. His face became still. No. The word came like a wound. It is not. He released her wrist. It is survival. Luca moved Hannah to a penthouse above one of his hotels. The top 3 floors were locked down. Armed guards occupied every entrance. Helicopters crossed the frozen night above Boston Harbor. Hannah stood in the kitchen beneath blue city light, staring at her mother's recipe box. Emily had been missing for 6 hours. Luca had refused every exchange Caruso proposed. By midnight, Hannah hated him. By 1 in the morning, she understood why. Caruso sent a video. Emily sat tied to a chair in a dark room. She was frightened, but alive. Behind her stood Vincent Caruso. He was silver-haired, elegant, and familiar from charity galas and hospital fundraisers. The kind of man whose photograph appeared beside smiling children in newspapers. Hannah, he said into the camera, your mother stole from me. Mr. Moretti has allowed that theft to become a personal obsession. Give me the drive and your friend comes home. The video ended. Hannah turned toward Luca. He stood near the window with Marco and 3 other men. Track the location, Luca said. We are trying. Marco replied. Hannah picked up the flash drive. Luca looked at her. Put it down. No, Hannah. She will die. Not tonight. How do you know? Caruso needs you emotionally unstable, not broken. If he kills Emily too early, you stop believing cooperation can save anyone. Hannah stared at him. You think like him. Yes. The quiet answer made her recoil. Luca dismissed the others. When the room emptied, Hannah held the drive between them. You are not better than he is. No. At least you admit it. I have never asked you to mistake me for a good man. Then what are you asking? His gaze moved toward the recipe box. Time. You have had 2 years to find Caruso. To tell me the truth. Luca's jaw tightened. I wanted you outside this world. You sat outside my window every day. You were the world. He looked away. That small surrender hurt more than his anger. Hannah opened the recipe box. The first recipe my mother taught me was honey bread. She removed the stained card. Nothing appeared unusual. Flour, water, yeast, honey, salt. Then she remembered the way her mother measured ingredients. Not by weight, by rhythm. 2 cups flour, 7 turns of the spoon, 11 minutes of kneading, 3 rises, 2, 7, 11, 3. A code. Hannah entered the numbers into the encrypted flash drive. The screen opened. Hundreds of files appeared. Bank transfers, shipping manifests, photographs, names of judges, police officers, senators, executives, and criminal families. At the top was a folder titled Moretti. Hannah looked at Luca. He remained near the window. You knew your family was included. Yes. You knew this evidence could destroy you. Yes. And you still protected me? Yes. Why? Because your mother made me promise. That promise ended when she died. Luca turned. No. Then, when did it end? When I stopped sitting outside your bakery because of her. The room went silent. Hannah's eyes burned. You said you did not love me. I said I did not want you to mistake obsession for love. What is it then? Luca crossed the room slowly. Love requires permission. He stopped in front of her. What I feel does not. Hannah's breathing changed. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. I wake before dawn because you open the bakery before sunrise. I know the sound of every lock on your back door. I know which songs you play when you are lonely and which recipes you make when you miss your mother. I know you touch the silver ring on your right hand when you are afraid. I know you leave the corner table empty every Tuesday because an old woman used to sit there with her husband before he died. Hannah's fingers moved unconsciously toward the ring. Luca noticed. "Do not," she whispered. "I know you stopped smiling after your fiancé left you for another woman and told you no man would choose a body like yours when beauty was available elsewhere." Her face went cold. "How do you know that?" "He told someone in a bar." "What did you do?" Luca said nothing. Hannah stepped closer. "What did you do to him?" "I purchased the company that employed him. And I transferred him to Anchorage. Despite everything." A broken laugh escaped her. Luca stared at her as if the sound had struck him. Hannah covered her mouth. "You ruined a man's career because he insulted me?" "No." His gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. "I relocated him because he made you believe you were difficult to love." The humor vanished. Hannah looked at him. Luca lifted one hand toward her face. He stopped before touching her. The space between his fingers and her cheek felt more intimate than contact. "May I?" he asked. The question shocked her. A man who commanded cities was asking permission to touch her face. Hannah nodded. His knuckles brushed her cheek. The touch was careful, almost reverent. She closed her eyes for 1 second. Then the penthouse windows exploded. Luca threw her to the floor. Gunfire tore through the room. The flash drive skidded beneath the table. Black-clad men descended from the roof on cables. Luca covered Hannah with his body while returning fire. The hotel alarm screamed. Marco burst through the side entrance with armed guards. A bullet struck Luca's shoulder. Hannah felt the impact move through him. He did not make a sound. "Luca, I am fine." Blood spread across his shirt. He pushed the flash drive into her hand. "Service corridor. Marco will take you." "I am not leaving you." "You are?" A masked attacker entered through the broken glass. Luca shot him. Another moved behind him. Hannah grabbed a heavy copper pan from the kitchen island and swung it with both hands. The pan struck the attacker's wrist. His weapon fell. Luca turned and drove him into the wall. He looked at Hannah. For 1 stunned second, neither moved. "I told you to leave, and I told you that you do not control me." Something fierce and proud entered his eyes. Then Marco seized Hannah's arm and dragged her toward the service corridor. The final thing she saw was Luca standing alone beneath the broken windows, blood running down his arm as the Boston skyline burned behind him. The safe house stood beside a frozen lake in western Massachusetts. Hannah arrived without Luca. For 9 hours, no one told her whether he was alive. Marco remained on the phone in the next room. Guards moved through the cabin. Snow buried the road. Hannah sat beside the fireplace with the flash drive in her pocket, and Luca's blood dried across her sweater. At dawn, headlights appeared between the trees. A black SUV stopped outside. Luca stepped from the passenger side. His shoulder was bandaged. His face was pale. He crossed the snow toward the house with the controlled posture of a man refusing to admit pain. Hannah opened the door before he reached it. She wanted to strike him. She wanted to hold him. Instead, she stood in silence. Luca stopped in front of her. "You are safe. You were shot." "I have been shot before." "That is not comforting." "It was not intended to be." Hannah looked at the blood beneath his bandage. "You did not call. I was unconscious." Her anger broke. "You could have died." Luca's eyes held hers. "Yes." The simple answer made tears rise. He lifted his uninjured hand, but stopped before touching her. Hannah closed the distance herself. She wrapped both arms around him. Luca froze. For a man who had killed without hesitation and commanded hundreds of people, he seemed unprepared for an embrace. Then his arm closed around her back. Slowly, carefully, his face lowered into her hair. Hannah felt his breath leave him. The sound was almost a surrender. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. "I am not. I hated you. I know. I still do. I know." His arm tightened. Hannah pulled back enough to see his face. "Emily?" Alive. Where? Caruso moved her after the hotel attack. We trace the helicopter, then we go. You stay here. No. Hannah, if you say my name in that voice again, I will reopen your shoulder. His eyes darkened. You are not entering a Caruso property. She is there because of me. She is there because of him. And I am going. You cannot fight trained men. I hit one with a pan. That was not a strategy. It worked. Luca almost smiled. Then his expression hardened again. This is not a negotiation. Hannah stepped closer. You have built your entire life around keeping me alive. You have watched me, controlled my business, moved me between houses, and decided what truths I could survive. But you still have not understood the most important thing about me. What is that? I would rather be afraid beside someone I love than safe while they suffer alone. The word love entered the room and changed it. Luca became still. Hannah realized what she had said. She tried to step back. His hand closed around her waist. Not violently, immovably. Say it again. No. Hannah, you do not get to command confessions. His gaze searched hers. Do you love me? She looked at the scar beneath his eyebrow, the exhaustion in his eyes, and the man hidden inside the power. I do not know. That is not what you said. I said someone I love. It could have been Emily. Liar. The word was quiet, almost tender. Hannah pushed against his chest. He did not release her. You are impossible. And you love me. I am considering it. I have waited 2 years. Consider faster. She stared at him, then she laughed, a real laugh. It surprised both of them. Luca looked at her as if the room had filled with light. Hannah's laughter faded. His thumb moved against her waist. You have never smiled at me, he said. You never got out of the car. I was trying not to frighten you. You failed. I know. The distance between them narrowed. Luca's gaze moved to her mouth. He stopped. Even then, he waited. Hannah understood. Permission. She placed her hand behind his neck and kissed him. For the first second, Luca did not move. Then restraint shattered. His hand tightened at her waist, pulling her against him. The kiss deepened with 2 years of silence, denial, and dangerous patience. Hannah felt his control slipping in the way his breath changed, in the way his fingers trembled once against her back. Then he ended it. Abruptly, he rested his forehead against hers. If I continue, he said, I will forget that you are afraid. I'm not afraid right now. You should be. Of you? Of what losing you has already made me willing to become. Hannah looked into his eyes. Then, let me decide whether to stay. For the first time, Luca released her without argument. They planned Emily's rescue together. Caruso had moved her to a private casino beneath an abandoned hotel in the Berkshires. The building had once hosted politicians and celebrities. Now it served as neutral territory for criminal families. Luca intended to enter under the pretense of negotiating. Hannah would remain in an armored vehicle with Marco. She agreed. Then she changed the plan. The night of the exchange, snow fell beneath the casino's red neon sign. Black SUVs lined the forest road. Men in tuxedos carried weapons beneath their jackets. Hannah wore a midnight blue gown from Luca's private tailor. When she entered the casino on Luca's arm, every conversation stopped. He looked down at her. You were supposed to remain in the car. I changed my mind. I noticed. You cannot drag me outside without making a scene. I am considering it. Consider slower. His mouth tightened. The casino glittered beneath crystal chandeliers. Roulette tables occupied the center of the room. Women in silver gowns moved between men who had built fortunes from fear. Vincent Caruso waited on a raised platform. Emily sat beside him, her wrists bound beneath the table. Caruso smiled. Hannah Mercer. Luca's hand settled at the small of her back. The gesture looked elegant. Hannah felt the warning in it. Caruso descended the steps. You look very much like your mother. So I have been told. She was more practical. She worked for you and still betrayed you. Caruso's smile thinned. Luca spoke calmly. Release the girl. The drive first. Hannah held up a small black device. Caruso's eyes sharpened. "This contains every file," she said. "But if my heartbeat stops, the contents are sent to 4 newspapers and 2 federal agencies." It was a lie. Luca knew it. Caruso did not. "You have become theatrical," Caruso said. "I own a bakery. Presentation matters." Luca glanced at her. Pride flickered beneath his anger. Caruso gestured. A guard cut Emily's restraints. She ran toward Hannah. Gunfire erupted from the balcony above. Luca pulled Hannah behind a roulette table as glass rained across the casino. Caruso's men turned on one another. A betrayal. One of Luca's allied families had sold him out. Marco dragged Emily toward the exit, while Luca shielded Hannah beneath the overturned table. "Stay down." A bullet struck the wood inches from her head. Luca rose and fired toward the balcony. Hannah saw Caruso retreat through a red door behind the stage. "He is escaping. Let him. He will come back. He will not reach the road." But Caruso had prepared more than one exit. A helicopter roared above the building. Hannah saw Emily stumble near the doors as a masked man seized her. Without thinking, Hannah ran. She crossed the casino through smoke and shattered crystal. Luca shouted her name behind her. The masked man pulled Emily toward the service corridor. Hannah grabbed a champagne bottle from a fallen table and struck him across the shoulder. He released Emily. The man turned toward Hannah. A gun rose. Luca reached them first. He drove the attacker into the wall with enough force to crack the plaster. The gun fell. Luca struck him again and again. The man stopped moving. Luca did not. "Luca." He hit him again. "Luca." Hannah caught his face between her hands. His eyes were dark, distant, and filled with something close to madness. "He is down," she said. "Look at me." Luca's breathing was harsh. "Look at me." His gaze found hers. The violence left his face slowly. Hannah touched her forehead to his. "I am here." His hands closed around her arms. "You ran toward him. He had Emily. He could have killed you, but he did not. You do not understand. I understand that you are terrified." Luca looked at her as though she had exposed something shameful. Hannah lowered her voice. "You are not angry because I disobeyed you. You are angry because you cannot survive losing me." His face tightened. Around them, the casino burned. Sirens approached through the snow. Luca's voice broke for the first time. "No." Hannah waited. He looked at her with all his power stripped away. "I cannot." She kissed him once, softly, then stopped trying to survive alone. Emily was taken to a private hospital. Luca remained beside Hannah's chair throughout the night. He did not sit. He stood near the window, one hand in his pocket, watching the city while doctors examined Emily. At 3 in the morning, Hannah woke and found him looking at her. "How long have you been standing there?" 3 hours. "That is unsettling." "Yes." She shifted beneath the blanket. "Sit down." Luca sat beside her. His knees nearly touched hers. Hannah studied him. "Why do you never sleep?" "I sleep." "When?" "When you are safe." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." She touched the bruising across his knuckles. "You nearly killed that man. He aimed a gun at you. That does not make it right." "No." "Do you regret it?" "No." Hannah withdrew her hand. Luca looked at her. "I will not lie to make myself easier for you to love." The sentence hurt because it was honest. Hannah looked toward Emily's room. "I do not want you to become harmless. That is fortunate. I want you to choose." "Choose what?" "Who you are when fear takes control." Luca's gaze lowered. "I have chosen violence most of my life. I know. It kept people alive. It also made you believe love and possession are the same." His eyes returned to hers. "Do you believe I possess you? You tried. And now? Now you ask before touching me." A faint tension moved through his face. "It is difficult. I know. I dislike permission. I know. I dislike the possibility that you could leave. I know." Luca leaned closer. "And yet you may." "Yes." His expression became cold again. But Hannah could see what lay beneath it. Fear. She placed her hand against his cheek. "That is what makes staying mean something." Luca closed his eyes. Only for a second, when he opened them, he turned his face and pressed a kiss into her palm. It was the most intimate thing he had done. The public scandal began the next morning. Photographs from the casino appeared online. Hannah in Luca's arms, Luca covered in blood, the burning casino behind them. Headlines called her his secret mistress, his financial accomplice, and the missing heir to a criminal fortune. Reporters surrounded the hospital, her bakery's social media accounts filled with threats and messages. Then, the federal government froze every Moretti account connected to the files. Luca's allies began abandoning him. His empire fractured within 48 hours. Hannah watched the news from the hospital suite. "You knew this would happen," she said. Luca stood beside the television. "Yes, you are losing everything." "Not everything." She looked at him. "Do not say me. I was going to say the hotel in Milan." Despite herself, she smiled. Luca's gaze remained on her mouth. "You do that more often now." "What?" "Smile. Maybe I had poor company before." His expression softened. Then Marco entered. Caruso contacted the federal prosecutor. Luca's face hardened. "What did he offer?" "Testimony against you in exchange for immunity." Hannah stood. "He can do that?" "He can lie," Luca said. "And the government can decide the lie is useful." Marco placed a folder on the table. "There is more." Caruso claims Hannah helped conceal the files. Hannah looked at Luca. "I did. You did not understand what they contained." "That may not matter." "It will." "How?" Luca closed the folder. "Because you will testify against me." Silence filled the room. Hannah stared at him. "No." "Yes. You protected me for 2 years, and now you want me to send you to prison? I want you free. I will not betray you. You will tell the truth. The truth is that you saved my life. The truth is also that I ordered men killed, bribed officials, concealed money, and controlled ports through fear. You were dismantling Caruso's network. I was also protecting my own." Hannah shook her head. "No." Luca stepped closer. "You ask me to choose who I am when fear takes control. Yes, this is my choice. To sacrifice yourself? To stop confusing your love with permission to keep you inside my world." Hannah's eyes filled. "You do not get to make this decision alone. I already signed the cooperation agreement." She went still. "When?" "Last night. You planned this while I slept." "Yes." Anger burned through her. "You promised to stop controlling my life." "I am controlling mine. You are removing yourself from mine. To preserve it. That is the same thing." Luca looked at her with quiet devastation. "No. This time, you can choose whether to wait." Hannah slapped him. For the 3rd time, he did not move. Tears ran down her face. "I hate you. I know. You keep deciding that losing you is what is best for me. I know. You are a coward." His face tightened. "Yes." She pushed against his chest. He let her. "You can face gunmen, federal agents, and every criminal family in Boston, but you cannot stand still and let someone love you." Luca caught her wrists. His eyes burned. "You think prison frightens me?" "No." "You think losing money frightens me?" "No." "Then what?" Hannah's voice broke. "Being loved by someone who sees exactly what you are." Luca stared at her. The truth entered the space between them. Slowly, his grip loosened. Hannah pulled her hands free. "I see you," she whispered. "And I am still here." His expression collapsed for one unguarded second. Then he kissed her. Not gently, not carefully. He pulled her against him with all the grief he had refused to speak. Hannah held his face, kissing him through tears, while the news announced the collapse of his empire behind them. When the kiss ended, Luca rested his forehead against hers. "I love you." The words were almost soundless. Hannah closed her eyes. He continued, "I loved you before I knew what to call it. I loved you when you stood in the snow with flour on your face. I loved you when you gave away food you could not afford to lose. I loved you every morning you refused to smile for me." A broken laugh escaped her. "You never gave me a reason." "I am trying now. You are going to prison." "Yes. That is a terrible reason. It is the first honest thing I have left to give you." Hannah touched his face. "Then give me something else." "What?" "Come back." Luca looked at her. "Promise me." "I do not make promises I cannot control." "Then make one you will fight for." He closed his hand over hers. "I will come back to you." Luca surrendered outside the federal courthouse 3 days later. Snow fell over Boston. Hundreds of reporters lined the barricades. Federal vehicles blocked the street. Helicopters circled above the skyline. Hannah stood beside him at the courthouse steps. She wore her cream bakery coat. Luca wore a black suit without an overcoat, as though cold no longer mattered. Black SUVs lined both sides of the street. His men stood beside them, silent, not as soldiers, as witnesses to the end of an empire. Before entering the courthouse, Luca turned toward Hannah. Every camera moved with him. He lifted her bandaged hand and pressed his lips against her knuckles. The image appeared across every television station in America within minutes. The Mafia Boss kneeling before the baker. The feared man surrendering power in public. Hannah looked down at him. "You do not have to kneel. For you, I do." He stood. Federal agents approached. Hannah caught his hand. Luca looked at her. "Smile for me," he said. Tears blurred her vision. "You have terrible timing. I waited 2 years." Hannah smiled, not because she was happy, because she wanted the last thing Luca saw before the courthouse doors closed to be proof that he had changed something inside her. His expression softened. Then the agents took him away. The trial lasted 11 months. Hannah testified for 6 hours. She told the truth. She described the surveillance, the protection, the secrecy, and Luca's crimes. She also described Caruso's network and the evidence her mother had hidden. Vincent Caruso was arrested trying to leave the country. The files exposed 27 officials, 3 judges, 2 police commanders, and several criminal organizations. Hundreds of victims were identified and rescued through the financial records. Luca pleaded guilty to racketeering, unlawful surveillance, bribery, and conspiracy. Because of his cooperation, he received 7 years instead of life. Hannah did not attend the sentencing. She stood inside her rebuilt bakery at 6:14 inches the morning and placed orange cardamom rolls beneath a new glass display. The front window had been replaced. The black Rolls-Royce was gone. For the first time in 2 years, the space beneath the elm tree remained empty. Hannah stared at it until the first customer entered, then another, then 20 more. People came because they had seen her on television. Some came because they admired her. Some came because they wanted to stand inside the bakery where a mafia war had begun. Hannah disliked the attention, but she kept baking. She renamed the shop Mercer and Morning in honor of her mother. Every Tuesday, she left the corner table empty. Every evening, she sent leftover bread to shelters. Every Sunday, she drove 3 hours to the federal prison where Luca waited for her behind glass. For the first 6 months, he refused physical visits. He believed distance would make it easier for her to leave. Hannah responded by sending him 1 photograph of the bakery every morning. No message, only the photograph. At Shaze, 13. The same time, his bodyguard once entered to buy every pastry. After the 200th photograph, Luca requested an in-person visit. Hannah sat across from him in a plain room with white walls. He wore a grey prison uniform. Without the black suits, bodyguards, and city behind him, he looked younger, more dangerous in some ways, more human in others. "You cut your hair," he said. "You lost weight. I dislike the food. You should have thought about that before committing organized crime." His mouth almost curved. Hannah placed a paper bag on the table. "Orange cardamom roll. Is there a file hidden inside it?" "No." "A weapon?" "Only butter." A guard inspected the pastry and allowed Luca to take it. He broke it in half. Then he pushed 1 piece toward Hannah. "You bought the entire bakery every morning and never shared with me. You never asked. I should not have needed to." He looked at her. "I am learning." Hannah took the pastry. They ate in silence. It was not dramatic. It was better. 3 years passed. Then 4. Hannah expanded the bakery into the empty building next door. She hired women rebuilding their lives after leaving abusive relationships and trafficking networks exposed by her mother's files. Emily became the general manager. Her son did homework at the corner table each afternoon. The bakery grew famous. but Hannah refused offers from national chains. She wanted one kitchen, one neighborhood, and one front window facing the old elm tree. Luca wrote letters. At first, they were controlled and brief. The weather is cold. I read the article about your expansion. Marco says the security cameras need replacing. Hannah replied, with increasingly irritated notes. Stop asking Marco to watch me. I am not replacing the cameras. The weather is always cold. You are in upstate New York. Eventually, his letters changed. I dreamed about the bakery last night. You were standing behind the counter, but every time I crossed the street, the door moved farther away. I woke angry. Hannah wrote back, that is because even your subconscious knows you should have gotten out of the car sooner. Months later, Luca sent another letter. I used to believe protecting someone meant removing every threat before they could see it. Now I understand that protection without truth becomes another kind of cage. I am sorry for every cage I built around you. Hannah read that letter 10 times. She carried it in her apron for a year. On the 5th anniversary of his surrender, Luca became eligible for early release because of continued cooperation and exemplary conduct. The hearing took place on a rainy November morning. Hannah sat in the second row. Luca entered, wearing a dark suit provided by his attorney. Their eyes met. For a moment, the courtroom disappeared. The board approved his release. Hannah did not breathe until the decision was final. Outside, reporters waited behind barricades. Luca left through a private entrance. Hannah stood alone beneath an umbrella near the prison gates. A black sedan waited 20 feet away. Luca stopped when he saw her. For several seconds, neither moved. Then he crossed the rain. Hannah lowered the umbrella. He stood in front of her, older, leaner, a silver line beginning at one temple. Still powerful, but the coldness around him had changed. You came, he said. You promised to come back. I was not certain you would still want me. You should have considered that before making the promise. Rain moved across his face. Luca looked at the car. Marco arranged transportation. Of course he did. I can ask him to leave. You should. Luca glanced toward the driver. The sedan pulled away immediately. Hannah raised an eyebrow. You still command people quickly? I asked politely. You looked at him. It was a polite look. She tried not to smile. Luca noticed. He always noticed. You smile more now, he said. I have better company. His eyes lowered. Hannah stepped closer. Not yet, she added. He looked at her. You have 5 years of mornings to make up for. I have time. I open at 4:30. I remember. You will work. I own several legal businesses. You can wash trays. Luca's expression became almost offended. I have never washed a tray. I know. That is why you need rehabilitation. Hannah turned toward the parking lot. After a moment, Luca followed. He did not take her hand. Not until she reached for his. Luca returned to Boston quietly. The Moretti empire no longer existed. His legal properties had been placed in trusts. His former allies controlled pieces of the old network, but none dared approach him without Hannah's permission. He rented an apartment 3 blocks from the bakery, not a penthouse. A brick apartment with 1 bedroom and a kitchen too small for his shoulders. Hannah laughed when she saw it. You hate this place. I hate the plumbing. You chose it. It faces the bakery. She looked through the window. Across the rooftops, she could see the gold lettering above Mercer and Morning. You are watching me again. I am observing a commercial property. You are impossible. Yes. The first morning Luca arrived for work. He wore a black shirt, black trousers, and an expression of deep suspicion toward the industrial dishwasher. Hannah tied a white apron around his waist. He looked down at it. No. Yes. I spent 5 years in prison. And yet this is the first punishment you fear. Emily entered, saw Luca Moretti wearing an apron, and nearly dropped a tray of croissants. By 7, the entire staff knew. By 9, a customer posted a photograph online. By noon, the former Mafia Boss washing pastry trays had become national news. Luca wanted the photograph removed. Hannah refused. It makes you approachable. I do not want to be approachable. You sell muffins now. I do not sell muffins. You carried 3 to a table. That was transportation. Hannah laughed. Luca looked at her across the kitchen. The sound still affected him. It always would. Later that night, after the bakery closed, they sat at the corner table beneath the dimmed pendant lights. Snow began falling outside. The old space beneath the elm tree was empty. Luca placed a small velvet box on the table. Hannah stared at it. "You have been free for 6 weeks. I waited 2 years before speaking to you the first time. I am not repeating that error." She opened the box. Inside was not a diamond. It was the brass key her mother had left her, restored and set into a delicate gold pendant. Hannah touched it. "I thought the government kept this." "I negotiated." "With whom?" "A polite federal archivist." She looked at him. "Luca, I filed paperwork. That might be the most romantic thing you have ever said." He moved from his chair and knelt beside her. The bakery became silent. Outside, snow covered the street where his Rolls-Royce had once waited every morning. "I spent most of my life believing love was a weakness other people could use against me," he said. "Then I watched you build a life from grief, flour, and stubbornness. You made kindness look stronger than fear." Hannah's eyes filled. Luca held her hand. "I cannot promise to become harmless. I do not want harmless. I cannot promise that I will never feel possessive. I know. I can promise to ask before I close my hand." Hannah smiled through tears. "That sounds slightly threatening." "It is the best proposal I prepared." "Is this a proposal?" His expression changed. For once, Luca Moretti looked uncertain. "Hannah Mercer, will you marry me?" She let the silence stretch. Luca's jaw tightened. "You deserve this," she said. "Yes. You made me wait 5 years. Yes. You bought every pastry in my bakery without ever complimenting the almond croissant. They were excellent." "Too late." "Hannah." She laughed. Then she touched his face. "Yes." Luca closed his eyes. The relief that crossed his expression was more powerful than triumph. He stood and pulled her into his arms. This time, when he kissed her, there was no gunfire, no shattered glass, no burning casino, and no fear that morning would take him away. Only snow against the windows, warm light over empty tables, and the smell of bread rising in the kitchen. They married the following winter. The ceremony took place inside an old library overlooking Boston Harbor. Hannah wore an ivory gown fitted to her curvy figure without apology. She refused designs intended to hide her body. The dress celebrated every shape she had once been taught to shrink. Luca waited beneath an arch of winter roses. He wore black. Of course he wore black. Outside, a line of black SUVs surrounded the building, but the men inside them were not soldiers. They were former employees, family friends, survivors, bakers, lawyers, and people whose lives had changed because Hannah's mother had hidden a key inside a recipe. Emily stood beside Hannah. Marco stood beside Luca. When Hannah reached the front of the room, Luca looked at her with the same intensity he had carried inside the Rolls-Royce for 2 silent years. But now, he stepped toward her. No tinted glass, no street between them, no hidden promise. "You are smiling," he whispered. "You finally got out of the car." The ceremony remained private. The reception did not. Someone photographed Luca carrying Hannah through the snow after she complained her shoes hurt. The image spread across the internet before they reached the hotel. The feared Mafia Boss held the laughing baker in his arms beneath white winter lights. Hannah's face was open and joyful. Luca looked at her as if the city around them had disappeared. Years earlier, the world had known him as a man capable of violence for power. Now it knew him as a man who had surrendered power for love. The following morning, Hannah woke before sunrise. The hotel suite overlooked the harbor. Snow rested across the rooftops. Luca slept beside her, one arm around her waist. She carefully slipped from bed, dressed, and walked to the bakery. At 6:14, she turned on the lights. The display case filled with orange cardamom rolls, almond croissants, and honey bread made from her mother's recipe. At 6:30, a black Rolls-Royce stopped beneath the elm tree. Hannah froze. The rear door opened. Luca stepped out, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He crossed the street. For the first time, he entered the bakery alone. The bell above the door rang. Hannah stood behind the counter. "You bought another Rolls-Royce." "It was restored." "You promised not to sit outside watching me." I was there for 30 seconds. That is how it begins. Luca placed the coffee on the counter. Then he looked at the pastry case. I would like to purchase everything. Hannah folded her arms. We are married? You do not need to keep my business alive. I know. Then why? He stepped closer. Because I have waited 5 years to eat breakfast with you. Hannah looked at the man who had once loved her through tinted glass. The man who had protected her badly, lost everything honestly, and returned without demanding that she remain. She came around the counter. Luca extended his hand. He did not take hers. He waited. Hannah placed her fingers in his. Then she smiled. Outside, Boston slowly woke beneath the snow. Inside the bakery, Luca Moretti sat at the corner table while Hannah divided one orange cardamom roll between them. The black Rolls-Royce remained parked across the street, but the man who had hidden inside it was finally where he belonged, not watching her life through glass, living it beside her.